Welcome back to the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast. Today is going to be all about Whatnot. I'm going to share the pros of selling on Whatnot, the cons of selling on Whatnot, and then at the end, I'm going to share how you can sell on Whatnot without having to do a live show. That is huge to me because I'm not the biggest fan of live shows. We've got 750 followers. We started at 0. Our very first show, we did not have any followers, but people saw it was our first show and we were doing golf clubs, and the golf community was so kind. They shared it. They rated us. So they brought people into the show and we had a really good first show. And it's been pretty good so far. Like the shows, like we've only had one really bad one where we had a show, but it was at the wrong time. We had it when there was another seller doing his first show, and he is pretty big in the Whatnot community. He has thousands of followers now, and we sold 3 golf clubs. We ended up calling it a day after 20 minutes, noticing that this is probably not the best time to run a show, which happens. But Whatnot has still been a platform that we want to sell on. I think it has a really good buyer base. Pro of selling on Whatnot is that the buyers are going to be completely different than the buyers you're going to see on eBay. Buyers on Whatnot, they like the auctions. They like the fast pace. They like the bidding. They're okay with paying for shipping. They're not going to argue with you because the way Whatnot does their shipping depends on what you run the auction or list a buy it now item for. So if I listed, let's say, 1 golf club, I know it's going to be about 1 to 2 pounds. That's going to be the shipping profile I choose. I'm going to choose 1 to 2 pounds. Whatnot sees that when I set it and run the auction, and then Whatnot charges the buyer based on what they charge a buyer for 1 to 2 pounds. But if a buyer buys more, as long as they're under 5 pounds, the most they're going to pay is $9.21. So buyers really like the way that shipping works because they can buy multiple items and only have 1 shipping charge. And then the shows where the seller does flat rate, priority, the post office, flat rate packaging, you can buy as many items as you want, but the seller has to make sure that they can fit it in like a large flat rate box or a medium flat rate box. So it really depends on what you sell. We've done that, the flat rate shipping for polo shirts. We've had somebody buy 20 polo shirts and we could fit it all in the large flat rate box. He only got charged $9.21. The marketplace is growing itself. Whatnot is here to stay, whether you like live selling or not. It is growing to over 11 billion. And I remember seeing Whatnot at SneakerCon. It was in Denver. We were with our friends, Josh and Ty. At the time was a huge sneaker reseller. And we went there and I'm like, what in the world is Whatnot? And I couldn't figure out, I'm like, live selling, how on earth? Like, do you just go live and somebody says they want to buy your item? Like, how do they pay? Do you list it? I had no idea. But I quickly learned that that was a platform that was growing, and that is a pro about Whatnot. We haven't done a show since end of September, but we have a show listed on our Whatnot selling profile. And one thing I really, really like about Whatnot is we can keep rescheduling the show to fit our schedule. So we can say we're going to do it this Saturday, something comes up, which sometimes it does. You never know what comes up in your life where you might have to cancel the show. But instead of canceling it, we can just move it. So maybe instead of Saturday, we're going to try the following Tuesday, see if that'll work. So I really like that you don't have to go live. It's not that pressure. You can go live whenever you want. You don't even have to schedule a show. You could wake up one day, look at your inventory that's sitting there that you don't want to list on eBay. I just want to go live right now. So that's a huge perk to me. It's location friendly. If we want to go on a road trip, go sourcing, and then in the hotel room, do a live show, we can, as long as we have shipping supplies and a scale and a thermal printer. It does have a lot of flexibility for sellers, and I think that's really good for sellers that are part-time that might have a lot of stuff going on. And that's kind of in the position we are, as we're now part-time resellers. We don't resell full-time like we used to. It's just part-time. Casey's working a full-time job, works long hours. He gets home. The last thing he wants to do is do a live Whatnot show. I promise you that. Even though he is really, really good at it. And I always make him do the live shows. And I'm usually behind the scenes because I feel like I'm more of a behind the scenes person when it comes to live selling. But flexibility is a perk with Whatnot. Back when we started selling on Whatnot, there wasn't as many YouTube videos, tutorials out there about selling on Whatnot. Now there's a lot more. We have a few tutorials on our Freeway Flippers YouTube channel showing, how you ship after a show, how you set up the show, how you run the show, things like that. And there's been other Whatnot sellers who have put out videos. So it is very helpful, the YouTube community putting out that information. But at the time, I didn't understand how did returns work. If somebody wanted to return something, what happens? Whatnot's very seller friendly. They take the side of the seller. There was one time that somebody tried saying that they didn't want the golf club that they purchased. Whatnot said, tough luck. You have to keep the item. And then if somebody wants to return an item, Whatnot will have them return it only under certain circumstances. They return it and it goes directly to Whatnot. It never even goes back to you. Whatnot always stands behind the seller, which is a really good thing for a seller. And that's a nice thing about selling on Whatnot is we always know that we're going to get taken care of. And 9 times out of 10, we don't even have to deal with the buyer. We don't have to deal with the return. You can sell a lot of items really fast. When we list on eBay, sometimes items are going to sit for 2 months, 6 months, 2 years. With Whatnot, you have all your items in a show and you might sell 40, 50 items. And so that is another good benefit. You're getting your investment back faster with Whatnot than if you list it on other platforms and they just sit there. Let's talk about the cons of selling on Whatnot, because there are things that I don't love about Whatnot as a platform because it is so different. I would say that the biggest thing for me is that any item I'm going to sell on Whatnot, 99% of the time is going to sell lower than if I sell it on eBay. And I'm sure there's those outliers, there's those exceptions for an item that's going to get bid up and bid up and bid up and bid up, and you do sell it for more than you were thinking. We have had that happen a couple times. But I'm talking about on average. So I was keeping track of a lot of the shows that we're doing. And when I would look to see the average sale price, way lower than the profit we would have made on eBay had we sold the item for what we wanted. So that would be a huge downside of Whatnot, is just you're not going to get top dollar for your item. On the other hand, you are going to sell a lot of items and recoup your capital. You're going to get your money back to go out and to buy more inventory. And buyers do want stuff started a little lower, which of course we made the mistake. We thought, oh, well, if we do dollar starts, we're going to get all these people in the show. And you better believe if you start an item at $1, it's going to sell for $1. We learned very quickly that we had to have a starting price where we still made money. We no longer start things at $1 to $3. We might start a polo shirt at $3 if I notice that there's a defect. Maybe it has a hole or a stain or a mark or something, or it's missing a button or something like that. I might start it a little lower because it does have a defect. A lot of the polo shows that we do now, we're starting shirts at $8 to $10 because it's not worth our time in the end to be doing these live shows if we're only going to be making $1 or $2 per shirt. So that's just a downside of selling on Whatnot. At least for us as sellers, we just haven't seen a lot of shows where we're making I don't want to say a big profit, but we're making what we would expect to make on other platforms, such as eBay or Poshmark. Now, that could be completely different for some sellers. Maybe they have such a strong following on Whatnot, and they consistently get items bid up to where they're making a lot of money. And I'm not saying that that can't happen, but we're a very small seller on Whatnot. We only have 750 followers. And in our shows, we average between 15 to 30 people. We don't have that many people bidding. It's just something that is a thing we noticed when we were looking at our numbers, that we're just not getting a lot of money for the items that we run. Whatnot has become a reseller platform. And what I mean by that is resellers aren't going there to sell, they're going there to buy. A lot of people will go into shows where they know people are going to start stuff at $1 and they know what they're looking for. And I think that's the only time you can honestly make that work. Let's say we had somebody come into our show when we were doing the polo shows, which I know we had resellers in there, and we started the shirts at $1 and they were seeing they weren't selling. They're going to buy those items and then they're going to take them and they're going to resell them. So a lot of resellers do go on there, but what's difficult, unless you are in a niche show and you know exactly what you're looking for, you are a golfer and you resell golf stuff, you know what brands to look for, or into designer purses, you know what purses sell for on eBay already. You don't have to do any research. With Whatnot, when you're doing those live auctions, you're setting them for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. You don't have much time to go and research to see what is selling. So that is a disadvantage if you are using Whatnot as a platform to find inventory. You just have to really be quick. And on the other side of that too, it's hard to research what is going to sell on Whatnot. So not only are you a reseller looking to find inventory, if you're a reseller looking to sell inventory, it's hard to know what's going to sell and what's not going to sell. There's been so many items in our shows where I look at Casey, I'm like, how did that sell for that much? Generic Greg Norman polo shirt, and it goes for $12. And we've got a Travis Matthew, really cool design, and it sells for 10. There is no logic when it comes to Whatnot. I have tried to figure it out. It is very unpredictable. It's an unpredictable platform. It's so hard to look at items in thrift stores and think, I know that's going to sell on Whatnot, because you don't know. It might sell on Whatnot, but what's it going to sell for? It's not like eBay where you can go out and you can look at sold comps, see what's sold, use their product research tool where you can see, you put in a brand and it'll tell you everything that's sold. And you can put in the dates, I want to know what's sold in the last 3 months, the last year, the last 2 weeks. You have a lot more data on eBay than you do on Whatnot. So I see that as a disadvantage for people who want to sell on Whatnot. Another unpredictable thing on Whatnot is who is going to attend your show. You might see 50 bookmarks. You run the show and 10 people are there and you're like, what is going on? Because people bookmark the show. I look at that time, I'm really interested in what this seller is going to sell, and then things happen. They have to go to dinner with somebody, or they had to work late, or they went on vacation on that time. Like, people aren't available to attend the show, even though they've bookmarked it. So it's unpredictable. You never know how many people will be in your show. There's times where we'll have 5 people, and I'm like, where is everybody? And then there's times where we'll have 30, 40 people. There's just no rhyme or reason for these things on Whatnot. It's unpredictable. You will need to have inventory available. When we first did the golf polo show, we sold almost 60 golf polos and we were left with only 20. So then we had to go out and look for more golf polos. So a lot of people don't understand with the Whatnot approach with live selling. You're selling so many in a show that you need to make sure that you can replenish and run another show with more inventory. It works for people that have constant inventory, but for us, we're not buying in bulk. We're going out and we're individually picking polo shirts from Goodwill or from a yard sale. So we're not actually having inventory constantly showing up. So that's one thing to think about if you're going to do the live shows, is to make sure that you have the inventory so you can keep up, because it does take time to build a following on there. And you want to, in the beginning, I feel like, be consistent, figure out what you're going to sell, figure out when are you going to do your shows, and it will take time. My feeling is that I think we have done pretty well on there considering the minimal effort we've put into Whatnot, because we have been in the golf category. So if I had any advice, if I were first starting, or if I could go back and start again, I would definitely still do more of a niche, but I would start out with a show kind of selling, well, you could do a niche show or just sell what you think will sell. And if not, maybe try a different category. So don't just give up if you are like us and you sell golf stuff and you didn't have success after 5 shows, I would try to sell other items because it's just so unpredictable of what is going to sell for you. Pretty much what time you're doing your shows, when you're doing your shows, how you're doing your shows. There's just so many factors that go into it, and it does take time to establish yourself as a seller. And then the last thing I will say about selling on Whatnot, which is a huge bummer, is when you first start out, they do not give you instant payouts. You do not get paid until your item shows delivered, which we all know, especially right now during Q4, stuff's taking longer. It's getting stuck in transit. It's not getting to the buyer as fast as it usually would. So that's one thing to think about, is you won't get those funds until it shows delivered. And then if you have an issue with delivery, then you have to take it up with Whatnot, because they legit will not release the payout until it shows delivered. That tracking has to show that it was delivered. So to me, that's just kind of a bummer when you first start selling. And then once you get to a certain threshold, then you get what's called instant payouts. So if somebody purchases the item, it automatically goes as a balance in your account. All right, let's talk about how do you sell on Whatnot without doing a live show? And that is by listing Buy It Now. Now, before we did not do any Buy It Now listings once they offered that option. Because think about it, when you list on eBay, you photograph, you have to fill everything out, and it is kind of tedious. With Whatnot, I would have had to go in and do it manually on that platform too. And for me, I just didn't have the time to go in and to individually list on Whatnot like we do on eBay. And with List Perfectly, we're able to take those eBay listings and put it on Poshmark and Mercari. But now, List Perfectly added Whatnot as a marketplace. And once I found that out, I was really excited because I wanted to try it. Because I don't love live shows, but I still know we have built a following in the golf category. So we have a seasoned account, and I didn't want to give that up. But I wanted to see if some of the Buy It Now listings would sell. So far, we don't have everything cross-posted yet, and we don't have that many items up. I think we only have maybe 50, but already we've sold 3 items. We just on Whatnot, just by cross-posting using List Perfectly. We sold another set of golf clubs today. I'm like, maybe this is the answer, because people are searching for specific things and they might come across our Buy It Now listing. It's just like eBay, they can make an offer. So when we use List Perfectly, it takes the item. You can either cross post from List Perfectly directly to Whatnot or eBay to Whatnot. So either way, we do it. We take all of our eBay listings, import them into List Perfectly, and then from there, we cross post to Poshmark, now Whatnot. You don't have to do that. You don't have to have your listings in List Perfectly. I like to have them there because if you look at the listing, it will show you which marketplace it's listed on. And it's much easier to delist the item if you have all of your listings in the List Perfectly catalog. So that's just the way I do it, but you can do it either way. I might make another step by going from eBay to List Perfectly and then List Perfectly, but I don't care. It saves me so much time. There's no way I would list Buy It Now on Whatnot without using List Perfectly. It's just something that makes it really simple. So when it pulls the listing from List Perfectly, it's going to pull all of the photos, the description, the title, quantity, price, SKU, which that's huge. The SKU will show up in the listing. And then the only thing we have to do, which I don't know why it doesn't pull, but the category. So you would have to select from all the different Whatnot categories. Ours, because we do pretty much golf polos, golf clubs, it automatically will have a little tab above where you do the drop down for the categories, and it'll say recent categories, and we just click on, golf apparel. It's not time consuming to have to choose that. And then I go over and I adjust the price. You do the Buy It Now. You can select if you want there to be offers. Another really nice thing about this is that we are getting all of the items that we have in inventory right now as Buy It Now on Whatnot. if we want to do a show, like let's say the next upcoming golf polo show, I can go into our listings and I can select those listings and add it to the show that we're going to do. And so those listings will show up as items that buyers can buy. So you can either have them only available during the live show. You could switch it to that, so they couldn't buy it now, or you could have it buy it now, which I think is huge because people can look at what's going to be in your show and maybe they see a shirt where they're like, I really want that shirt. So they'll already have an idea of what you're going to be running. And that's how a lot of sellers do run their Whatnot shows. They list everything. And then when they're doing their show, they will run an item that somebody sees in the shop part of the show. So that is really nice because somebody could maybe only have 5 minutes before their kid's basketball game. And they come in and they ask, did you run that Travis Matthew polo? Oh, which one? Oh, no, we haven't. So then because it's in there, all we have to do is click on that listing, run it as an auction, and then anything that we don't sell that we've pulled from our inventory, it's still listed. So we can just put it back in inventory. And I think that's going to be huge when we start doing our Whatnot shows again in the future, which we're going to be doing. It's just right now we are taking some time away from the Whatnot shows, which is why I am so excited that List Perfectly added Whatnot to one of their marketplaces, because this is allowing us to still sell, still keep building a following, still have a presence on Whatnot, keep our account going. It's still active. It's still being used. And I love that about List Perfectly. We do have a 30% off your first month coupon code. You can use Daycheckers or freeway flippers. And then I also have the link down below if you want to click on the link. They do offer a free trial of 100 listings and 5 days for the free trial. And then after that, you will pay for the subscription. They have different subscriptions you can choose from. We have the Pro, which recently those 3 sales on Whatnot has more than paid for our List Perfectly subscription. And because we use it, not only are we now selling stuff on Whatnot, we're also back on Poshmark, back to cross listing on there, and we've sold a few items on there as well. And remember, I'm just part-time. So if you are a seller who has a lot of items, just think about putting those items on Whatnot and seeing which items sell. And maybe you're interested in doing live selling, but you just don't know what to sell on there. By having these buy it now listings, you're able to see what does sell on there. And those might be the items that you continue to look for when you are going out to get inventory. And those are the items that you'll have in your future shows. Once again, we do have that Whatnot seller referral link down below. We will get a little commission once a seller has their first live show and sells an item in the show. So that's how they do it with the referral and the commission. But once you sign up to be a seller, you can actually get your own seller referral code and buyer referral code. And we've used the buyer referral code to refer people to the Whatnot platform. And then we get, I think, $5 when somebody makes their first purchase. They get $15, which then in my eyes helps us out because we now have money that we can spend on Whatnot and either find something that we really have wanted or find something to then resell. So might as well take advantage of it. Free money is free money. Hope you enjoyed this Whatnot episode. If you have any questions about selling on Whatnot, make sure you leave them on in the comments down below if you're listening on YouTube, and I'll catch you in the next episode.